So there's my intro to our foundations for putting. How we're going to start looking at your ability to make more putts. Let's look at it that way, because what we're looking at here is 5 feet and in. You've got a great green to be able to putt on. I've got one inside here where I set up 3 feet, 4 feet, and 5 feet. And normally I have 2 wooden yardsticks or meter sticks to lie down where, one end of the yardstick is here, and then 6 feet later it ends up just past the hole, because I want to make sure that I recognize how far I want to roll this ball. I want to roll the ball as a feeling past the hole, not into the hole, past it. As a sidetrack quickly, someone mentioned once to me, what do you define as one of the best putters? And I mentioned a bunch of things, and someone else said, the best putters have the ability to stop the ball where they want it to. And I thought that was really cool. So for this scenario here, I want you to be able to feel like you're trying to stop the ball past the hole. So from 3 feet, 4 feet, and 5 feet, if you can, try and set up something like a sticker or maybe a mark on the ground from 3, 4, and 5 feet, because they're going to come in handy in a bit. So from the 3 foot one, that's the one where you want to start. And the idea for this 3 foot putt really isn't so much about trying to get the right speed, because my 6-year-old could do that. This is about trying to recognize where your line is so that you hit your line every time. This is about start line. I think that's a foundation in golf as well when you work on your full swing. It's about your start line. When I'm looking at a spot maybe halfway to the hole, maybe a foot on this side or a foot from my golf ball, I'm looking for a spot along my line that gives me a chance to direct my intention. It's a good way to look at it. I can use my putter to aim at that spot. I can also use all of my feel, my ability, my squaring of the club face, my speed, all of that stuff, try to get it at that spot. And I've always found that if a golfer comes to me and struggles with that 3 or 4 foot putt, it's because first, they don't quite see on the ground where they have to go. And second, there could be another aim bias in there, which we'll get to later on. So from 3 feet, the idea is just to recognize where something is along your line, set yourself up so this ball looks straight toward that spot, and give it enough speed so that it rolls into the hole. As a game, you can do that multiple times before going back to the 4 foot one, or just jump to 4 feet. Now, when we get to 4 feet, it's obviously longer than the 3 foot one, so you want to feel like the stroke's a little bit longer. But if you remember, there's a spot under this 3 foot putt, so I want to be able to use that again to aim at the hole. There's probably still a spot here you can use. It still should be on the same line. So setting up to that putt and being able to roll it over 1, 2 spots into the hole, we're now getting a little bit more into how you see the line, a little bit more aim stuff. So when we get back here to 5 feet, you now have 2, potentially 3 spots into the 4th being where the hole is. Sometimes those don't always look the same. And this is where we start getting into your aiming and the way that I want you to feel like you can set up. If you get into this 5 foot putt, the first thing I want you to do is recognize those 2 spots there and try and set yourself up so that those 2 spots and the golf ball look like they're all aimed into the middle of the hole, right? Sometimes you can get up over a putt, and a lot of people do, and they have their head put down to the ground in a way that kind of changes the way that they see straight on the ground. It's a big sea of green, especially on a great club where there's no marks on the ground. It's hard to recognize where straight is. I can always look up and see a hole, but it doesn't mean that I'm aimed there. So trying to see when you get up over a ball, how it is that you can see 1 spot, 2 spot, and 3 as a straight line. I do an exercise outside where I call it stalking, where a golfer gets behind the golf ball to look at it straight, because that's where we see our best, call it our vision of normal. That's the best vision we have, is straight out of our head this way. So if I move this way and look down at it, most people can see straight and get the aim right pretty good. So when I stand here, I see a big straight line. Now, when I get over here, sometimes that straight line can start looking crooked. And all that means is that I've put my face down on that situation in a way to see it. So one way to look at it is that, you can set up to it, and if that line looks like it's pointed to the left of the hole, you can feel like you aim this first ball to the right a little bit, and now all of a sudden that line looks like it's pointed to the right of the hole. So how you set your eyes up this way helps you see straight, left, and right. When I start getting into it, maybe it's a little bit of pouring water out of one ear, chin down a little bit. Most people have reverted to maybe opening their stance or closing their shoulders in an attempt to see straight. But it really comes down to how you wiggle around with your neck. So Put your putter behind the ball for 5 feet, wiggle your neck around until one spot, two spots, third spot into the hole all look straight. And you can see that when I do it, I have a tilt to my head. You can see how my head's a little crooked right there. I want to make sure that that gives me my straight view on the hole. That's my aim bias. It's the way that I do it best. And then from there, practice rolling them down from 5 feet. And if you can get comfortable playing a game at your place where it's maybe 3 from 3 feet, 4 from 4 feet, 5 from 5 feet, and if you do it once, you can do it again. And it starts to build a little bit of internal competitive edge. You know, back in the day, we used to hear about games like, make 100 putts from 1 foot before you leave the golf course, or 100 putts from 2 feet before you leave the golf course, or one of those games where it's a big number from a very small yardage. And people think, well, it's really easy. And then over the years, some people have said, well, why would you do 100 in a row? You never do that on the golf course. And people start thinking about it maybe a little differently. But what you don't really get to talk about in those games is the idea that, when you get to about 45 or 50, you're going to feel something. And then between, say, 75 and 80, you might zone out thinking about dinner later on and all of a sudden make 4 or 5 in a row. And all of a sudden, you just found like unconscious consistency. And then you get to 98, 99, and you're like, wow, I have a chance to finish this. And if you finish it one time, you feel like completely satisfied. That's really good. What if you did it again? And then you did it again. And then you start to get that feeling more often of, oh my gosh, I'm about to fail. I don't want to. And it's that teeter-totter point, 99 to 100 or 99 to 0. And I don't think we practice those things enough, getting that type of edge to it. So by practicing these, you can come up with all types of different games that gets you pushing the feeling you get of having to make the next one. And so when we're evaluating your putts on the golf course, how many putts you make inside 5 feet, you're also playing games from 5 feet, just like if you were working out. You start with a 10-pound dumbbell, then it gets to 20, then you get to more reps, then you get to more weight, right? This is more reps, more weight. And we just want to try and feel like you continue on and push yourself for this. So measure your putts 5 feet and in, practice this one at home. And the big thing throughout here is really recognizing how it is that you see straight on the ground, how you have to get your face tilted to see that. There's all types of different ways for me to kind of recognize how straight is, but it's what I want to do with the putter.